man, joining us and being a part of this. I got to ask you first, where did this all begin for you? Your whole musical, passion of what you do, where did it start? Where did this come from?
I come from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and my dad was a drummer, and he quit playing drums when he met my mom and got married. And my mom always told him that he would regret selling his drums because he might have a boy one day and he'd want to play the drums. And my dad said, I'll get him some drums, Too bad. Can you imagine that drum set? I wonder how great that would have been.
Absolutely.
I heard my dad play for the first time as he was marching down Main Street in Tulsa at a parade. He was marching with the Akdar Shrine Drum Corps. He was a Shriner. And they used to party, and they rehearsed in the basement of the Shrine Club in Tulsa. And he took me one day, and I listened to him rehearse all day. And at the end of the rehearsal, I picked up my dad's sticks and I played what I'd heard. And they were all blown away, and they said how unusual that was. And so my dad brought his drum home that night. And so from that point on, until I got my first drum set that he promised my mom that he would buy me later, I played on his marching drum. Yeah. It's funny, I just read a story by Steve Gadd, some interview with him, and he had a similar thing, the field drum thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
And but I played on that drum. I used to play it. It was loud, and I didn't want people to. I didn't want to disturb anybody, so I'd take it to the closet where all the clothes were hanging, and it was quiet. It was more muffled, and I had my sister bring a spoon in, and I said, "Okay, you play on the edge of the drum here. Play it like 1, 2, 3, 4. Just do that." And and then she would do that, and that would be the bass drum for me, as I remembered in my mind's ear there. And so then I played the little cadences, and it just thrilled me, the fact that it was rubbing against each other, the groove, and I was sold right then. I think that did it. So then my dad surprised me with a little pawn shop, old set of Slingerlands, and the first thing I did with the drum set was I started singing a song called "Somebody Bad Stole the Wedding Bells." I don't know why. It must have been something that my mom was singing or something. And I played that, and I played the cowbell with the drum set. And I remember just thinking, how cool it was. So that was it, basically. That's how I got started.
And where did your professional career begin?
The professional career... Really, my mom, I still have the same original dollar. My mom was that kind of person. She put it in a picture of me and my little band that I was in, 13 years old. And I think that, once you play the drums or you play an instrument and somebody gives you $1 or however much it is, you feel like a pro.
Yeah.
And so it kind of started there. And then in junior high school, when you're fresh from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you come to Pasadena, California, it's a pretty big shock, culture shock.
Yeah.
And I had a very, very twangy, whiny kind of Tulsa accent. And I was a skinny kid, and come to this school where there's a lot of very, buff-looking people. The guys are all athletes and surfers and stuff.
Right.
And so I remember that the first time we played in an assembly, where everybody's required to go. The whole school is at the assembly. And they all saw me play. And I remember I had a good time. I remember that it was feeling good and it was sounding good, and I knew we were good. And from that moment on, I became a guy that the whole school wanted to be around. They wanted to be my friend. They wanted to know me. And, the girls included. And I found out later that one of the girls was my beautiful wife over there.
How powerful that is.
And she said to one of her girlfriends, "The drummer is mine." and And later on at in the hallway at the lockers, just like the school TV shows you see, the same thing happened, man. She looked up at me and she batted her eyelashes and said something cool, and that was it for us. And I'm embarrassing her.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. Really.
So also I'm not only a legendary drummer, but I have a legendary marriage. 52 years we've been married. That's legendary in the music business, in any business.
In anyone, that's powerful. Wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's absolutely beautiful.
But I tell people all the time, that music changed my life. I could have been somebody that just was always trying to hide, from the bad guys and stuff. But the bad guys all wanted to be my friend. They would come up to me and go, "Hey, drummer boy." So drums, was my saving grace.
What's powerful is that I had the chance of attending a clinic you did in 1976 at the Dick Grove workshop that he had.
Wow, really?
I was there, Jim. And what was amazing is I came out and they had, and every Saturday morning from like 10 to 12 or whatever it was, they had a different artist.
Mm-hmm.
You were there. I had met Johnny Gurn was there, Roy Burns, Louis Bellson, Shelly Manne. It was amazing how Dick Grove had organized that.
Yeah.
But when you played as a young kid coming out to California, playing out here with a band, and when I went to the class, you thought differently than anybody else that I had heard.
Mm.
How you played a groove and what you thought and what you laid down and the creativeness of how you just, really applied the instrument was very different. That totally impressed me. Is that something that you, and listen, all the things you have done, whether it's with Ringo or George, or Ry Cooder, all that stuff, you seem to find something different. It's incredible.
Well, man, that's very nice. Thank you. That's coming from you, somebody like you. That's
really is
fantastic
amazing
to hear. I think for me, the fact that I came to rock and roll pop music very late in life compared to what most people do. I was a jazz
you swung.
snob.
Yeah.
I didn't like anything but Elvin, Miles.
Yeah.
If it wasn't Philly Joe or later on, Billy Higgins. I went through a Shelly Manne period that was unbelievable. I got to meet him and everything.
Yeah, what a great guy he was. Yeah.
Like a great uncle for me. And then I met Hal and Hal Blaine, the great Hal Blaine, and Earl Palmer, the great Earl Palmer, who got Hal Blaine started in the business.
Yeah.
Which is, those kind of people in your life. I think what happened with me was, because I had such a tremendous jazz, a love of jazz, a deep love for jazz, and a deep hatred for anything but that. I think that once I started making records, playing, on pop records and stuff, and had been exposed to the giants like Hal and Earl and Al Jackson, Roger Hawkins and all the great Motown guys, Ben Benjamin, all of that stuff that I would listen to, that became the feel that I emulated, but my heart and my mind was as a jazz player. So I think the combination is what made me feel like I didn't want to play exactly like all of the pop guys.
Yeah.
First of all, it was a good thing because I knew I couldn't. I knew I'd never be as good as Hal or Earl or Al Jackson, for instance. I just knew that I wouldn't be able to do that because that belonged to them, and it's, you just can't. As hard as I would try, I couldn't do it. So I think that, that's one of those things that should happen to you. Hopefully it does, where you find that, okay, what I'm going to do is this, and I had here. Let me put it like this: like, there was a great influence on me right after Hal and Earl, which was a guy named Jimmy Gordon.
Oh yeah.
And Jim Gordon, he influenced me so heavily because when he played, the first time I heard him play, I got to sit right next to his floor tom. I said, "Do you mind if I sit here and watch you?" And he said, "No, man." So I sit down and I listen to his sound and his feel. And to this day, when I hear him playing, you know, nowadays they have YouTube stuff with isolated drum tracks and stuff.
Right.
And they, you know, you can hear one of Jimmy Gordon. The other day I heard one, because people send me this stuff, and I thought it was me. But I knew it wasn't me after a little while because it was too perfect. And so I realized it's Jimmy Gordon, and I just realized how much of an influence he was on me.
Yeah.
So my point is that when somebody is in your life like that, and you're emulating them to such a degree that you know it's never sufficient. It's never going to be. You can't rise to somebody else's deal.
Yeah.
You have to, in order to survive, you have to be able to move that out of the way and make your way. And I was able to do that with Jimmy, and in order to do that, I had to find things about his playing that I didn't want to do. And that wasn't natural to me anyway. And so it was such a great revelation when I could actually breathe, you know, and not be under his, you know, like, God, it just doesn't sound as good as Jimmy does. When I finally got to that point, it was a big moment for me. And I think that's really important for everybody to figure that out. How do you, if you're a young drummer now, and you've been studying and you love it more than anything, and you've got good technique, you've been studying with good teachers, you've been practicing and playing and everything, and then you see Thomas Lang play, or Vinny, or any of the cats.
Yeah.
What in the world do you do? You know, do you celebrate the fact that you got to see them in person and you got to witness this amazing Cirque du Soleil of drumming? Inhuman kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Or does it intimidate you to the point where you know you'll never be able to do that and you want to quit? Or, you know, that hopefully you will take that and, you know, let the assimilation happen, that you witness this, and, you know, that's good, that's in here now.
Yeah.
But go forth with your thing and believe in what it is you do, you know. And experiment and find out, you know, what tickles you about your own playing.
Right.
You know, that has to happen, because otherwise, I had a moment like that when I was coming up. I was driving down with a really good friend of mine, a brilliant genius bass player named Albert Stinson. He was my best friend, and we were both just kids, and we were playing in a band, and we were driving down from Crestline all the way down to the mountains, all the way back to Pasadena, Altadena. And I remember being depressed, and I remember saying to him about this great drummer, Mike Romero, who was 2 years younger than me, and who had played with Albert a lot. And we're talking jazz here. And I said to Albert, I said, you know, I'm never going to be as good as Michael, so I may just not try. And he yelled at me and cursed and everything. He said, you crazy, you know what? I would rather play with you anytime. And I said, man, you're saying that because you're my best friend. And then he cursed me some more, and made me understand. He made sure that I understood what he was saying, that there was something about the way I played that made him want to play. Whereas maybe there was something about Michael that made him want to listen, you know, to him play instead of. So it was a big deal for me. That was a big moment. That may have been where this all started. It's self-preservation.
Interesting.
But it's necessary, no matter what instrument you play, or no matter what you do in life. You're an actor or whatever you are. You've got to, at some point, find something about what you do that you really like.
Yeah. Boy, this is very powerful. Very, very powerful. But you've really found your own niche and sound. You really created the Jim Keltner style and sound, which is powerful.
Well, I don't, it's funny when you say style, you know, because of the nature of my work being mostly recording, I never really had that much, I started recording before I was in any kind of big bands, you know.
Right.
And even then, when I was only like in maybe 4 bands, but then I did some major tours, which made it seem that I was out on the road a lot, but I never really spent that much time on the road. And so playing live has not, it's been a small part of what I've done. I've just made records all my life since I was a kid, 22.
Wow.
Making records really kind of demands that you don't, or at least I always kind of thought this, like I didn't want to sound the same on the next record.
Right.
So it kind of made me feel like I shouldn't have a style, that I should be developing something for each record. And so, but people have said that to me over this. I can tell when it's you, some people say. But then to that I say, yeah, but I could play you records that you would never believe it's me.
Right.
Good and bad, for good and bad.
But a part of it is that the fact that you offer such a creative uniqueness each time, that a lot of times I hear only Keltner would think that way. And
that's so nice to hear. That's so
interesting.
That's so great for you to say that. That's something that I think we all would hope that would be said about our playing.
Yeah, well, really.
That's fantastic to hear.
And you influenced, Jeff, who was highly influenced by you.
Well, let me. You want to talk about Jeff?
Yeah.
See, Jeff Porcaro. First of all, I always thought of him as my little brother.
Yeah.
He was 17 when I met him, and he was a phenomenon. He was ridiculous. He played. That was at a time when Vinny wasn't quite Vinny yet.
Yeah.
But I had already heard Vinny, and I knew that Vinny was some kind of crazy force.
Yeah.
And then I heard Jeffrey play something that was very much like Vinny, and so I remember turning around and I said, "Hey, can you do that again?" And he did exactly. Like it wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
So I said, "Man, where did you get those kind of chops?" And I figured it was his dad, the famous Joe Porcaro teacher. And he said, "Yeah, Joe showed me a few things, but I used to play on his drum set, from the time I was so small that I couldn't reach the pedals."
Yeah.
So he had been doing it for a long time, and he got technique and chops that were ridiculous at a very young age. And then he said, when I complimented him, he said, my dad and all the Goombas, all the guys, they all said to me, "You play too fast, you play too busy, slow down."
Yeah.
And I told him, I can't say what I said here on camera, but I said, "Listen, you're 17 only one time in your life.
Yeah.
You go for it now, man.
Right.
You play as fast and as busy as you want to, because you got plenty of time to slow down."
Yeah.
A couple years later, less than that, he was on this incredible big hit record by Boz Scaggs, Lowdown.
Lowdown album, yeah.
And it just showed,
The groove was incredible.
The groove, there was nobody, I just spoke about him a few minutes ago, and I was saying that to be so young and to be so bad with his pocket, his soulfulness and his serious pocket, I hate to use that word over and over, but his groove was so soulful, and he was such a young man. I always thought of him as an old soul, and I said, to him many times, you're an old man in a young kid's body. But he was a young man, and was cut down at the age of 38. That's very young.
Yeah.
That's way too young.
Yeah.
So from the time he came on till 38, age of 38, he was, I will say, one of the best recording drummers I've ever heard in my life. He could do anything, and it was beautiful. I won't say it was perfect, but it was always beautiful what he did. His interpretation, he just was one of a kind.
Yeah.
So, and I must say that people have always said that I was one of the biggest influences in his life, and I've straightened this out a few times, but I'll do it again. Musically, he would always try to emulate me, and I would always tell him, because when he'd show me what he had done that he thought was like me, it wasn't it.
Yeah.
And I would say, listen, you know what? Don't waste your time doing that.
Yeah.
I said, don't listen to me, because it won't serve you well in playing on records later on and stuff. You know, what's going to serve you well is if you listen to Jim Gordon, listen to John Guerin.
Yeah, Johnny.
I told him all these people to listen to, and then one of the last people I turned him on to was Bernard Purdie. I said, listen to this, and I played him a bunch of stuff, and he flipped out, just like you do when you hear Purdie for the first time.
He loved the shuffle too, man. He loved it.
And then from there, he took it from there, man, and there was nobody as good as Jeffrey. And Vinny and all the guys that got to know him personally will agree with that 100%.
Yeah. And they loved him. We loved him. He really had that sense of aura that you couldn't help but love him.
Oh.
But I'll tell you something, he's smiling now hearing the words from you.
Yeah.
He's smiling now.
Yeah, he is.
Because he really believed in you, and he really trusted you, and he really looked up to you, and he really enjoyed his relationship with you. Cause
yeah, he loved me a lot. I know he did. And we had real great, serious personal talks where I know, I can't say it on the camera, but I know what my biggest influences on him were, and they weren't musical.
Yeah.
And we both were crazy at a time when it was very crazy time, and everybody was crazy, and I was an old crazy person, he was a young crazy person, but we were still crazy at that time. But even though we would have these really intense, good talks.
Yeah.
And so I know that I'm going to see Jeffrey again one of these days.
Yeah.
And it's going to be great.
And the times will be absolutely even better.
Yeah,
even better.
It's going to be better.
Another guy that sometimes is underrated as a drummer is Ringo.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. I always loved it because of him being a natural lefty, playing a righty kit and starting fills. He had another certain sound and style that I used to love and analyze because it was just so exciting, everything he played in the process. You've done things with him with two drummers together, and that must have been just absolutely incredible.
Well, when I first met Ringo, it was with George. George said, you want to go, we were driving from someplace, and we were in London, and he said, you want to go stop by the studio and say hello to Ringo? And I said, yeah, man. So we walked in, and Ringo it was Island Studios, I think, which was very popular in England, in London. They had the studio, the control room be up here, and then down on the floor be where you play. Right. And I remember walking in, I saw Ringo's down on the floor there, and he had some maracas. And so we went out to say hello, and the first thing he said was, hey, you want to join me? So he handed me one of his maracas, and we both shook on It Don't Come Easy, which was a big single for him that George wrote for him. Yeah. And so it started there, and then we became really good friends, and when we would hang out, I would tell him, I said, Ringo, you know, you changed everything for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Because he seemed too overly humble, like not humble, but like almost beyond humble, like where he wasn't
unaware of it.
Yeah, totally unaware that he had done anything.
Yeah.
That's what it must have been like to be the drummer with the Beatles. Yeah. You know, you're so underneath everything. You're not. And so I told him, and I told him all the time. I said, man, you changed everything. And I gave him examples of what he did. This thing that he played was the first time anybody ever played that on a record that I know of, and stuff like that. And I said, you know, for me, I'm making records at that time, and people like Russ Kunkel and other guys, and Jimmy, and everybody making records in those days, they all wanted to sound like Ringo. I said everybody wants to sound like you, and they wanted to try to get that feel that you got. Yeah. And his feel was always on the very back side of the beat, not behind the beat, right? On the back side. And I said, I think that I listened to you so much that's where I play now. That's just where I live. But I was always pumping him up and trying to explain to him, you know, that he was like one of the most copied and revered drummers in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, all you have to do is listen to the records. I mean,
It's as obvious as
Yeah.
your nose on your face. What's amazing is that when the Beatles hit in February of '64, I myself was a jazz drummer,
Yeah.
and again a diehard Elvin, Buddy, Max. When that hit, it just grabbed me. And I said, that was unbelievable. I mean, it was really very
Isn't
different.
That's amazing, huh?
It's
It's funny how that happened, yeah. And that happened to a lot of guys too, like Jack DeJohnette, all those guys.
Millions, Bissonette, all these guys, absolutely, totally.
All of my jazz heroes,
Yeah.
they all have always loved great pop music, you know, and R&B and stuff. Look at Coltrane himself played R&B as he was starting. Charles Lloyd, who was one of my great heroes, he started off in Memphis playing R&B.
Yeah.
So but yeah, Ringo and Charlie, Charlie Watts.
Yeah.
Two of the guys with the biggest bands in the world, right? But two guys who play like nobody else in the world, and you can't really describe their playing. And I'll tell you another thing: no matter how good you are, you're never going to sound like them. You can't play like them. You cannot play like Ringo played with the Beatles, and you cannot play like Charlie Watts when he plays with the Stones. And I just saw Charlie play the other day at a rehearsal.
Really?
Yeah, they're rehearsing for their South American tour.
Wow.
And so they always let me come in, and I sit right next to Charlie while they're playing, and Keith is walking over and smiling and playing. And there's no band in the world like that. And we're all so old now, it's unbelievable. And they're still rocking, they still sound incredible.
Yeah, that's pretty magical. But they say that wisdom is the combination of experience and knowledge.
Yeah.
And that knowledge that you have of the instrument and of music, and the experience of the thousands of recordings that you have done with the greatest minds in the music industry that you've played with. The list is unbelievable.
Yeah.
You have developed this wisdom in your playing that when they hear you play even the most elementary groove, it is exactly the groove in the right place as a servant for the song. How do you go about when you hear a song? How do you decide what you're going to do? How do you step into the song itself?
I've always, what you just said, it makes the big difference. I came in up here. I didn't come in and work my way up anywhere. It just was one of those great blessings, And so I came in playing with geniuses right away.
Yeah.
Very early on, I was playing with the greatest people.
Yeah.
And so that's what I know. That's what I knew. And I tell you, I've always said, if you are allowed to play with amazing people, you will end up probably sounding amazing.
Yeah.
If you've done your homework. And the homework being, the experience. You play because you love it, and you're playing probably since you were a kid or something. And so each time you play, you get a little better. You've got some kind of experience behind you, and that develops to the point where you get an opportunity, and in your first opportunity, you can rise and to be able to rise to be able to be sitting behind a little funky set of drums and hearing in your headphones, hearing John Lennon's voice singing, or George Harrison's, or Bob Dylan's.
Amazing.
Or Barbra Streisand, or those moments that stick in your mind forever. Neil Young, Ry Cooder, Randy Newman. I'm always afraid I'm going to leave somebody out. There's so many incredible. Roy Orbison. Tom Petty. Jeff Lynne. But to listen. To be playing and hearing those voices in your headphones. First of all, the songs are going to be great. They're going to be great songs.
Right.
And the playing is going to be fantastic because, and this is what I teach young kids now when I'm producing a couple of records and things. And I tell them, okay, the first thing we do is we're going to look at everything that we've got here on tape. Now, you see what's missing here? And they go, oh, what? And I say, there's no performance from you. I've done my job, and everybody else, you got a really great piano player, and the bass player's doing his thing and everything, but where are you?
Yeah.
And so I'll have them redo a lot of stuff sometimes, or in the best case scenario, we'll redo the whole thing, period.
Yeah, yeah.
But what you have to do is when you write a song, you have to be like John or George or Bob or the Genius guys. You have to write that song with such conviction and play it like that, so great that it doesn't need drums, doesn't even need a band. Then by the time the whole band comes in and they hear that song and hear you doing it the way you're doing it, and they play and you go listen to the tape back or the hard drive, you will hear something that is amazing, because that song has changed you. You didn't change the song.
Right.
In other words, don't write a song and then hope that really great musicians are going to make it great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Write a song that's going to turn the great musicians on and make them rise to that song. So that's the whole big difference there, and that's where I've been so fortunate, to play. So that when you say to me, how do you come up with stuff, when you're playing on a record? For me, always the great song just tells you what it is. The code, there's no mystery to the code. Sometimes breaking the code for a song means that the song is, not in every case by any means, but in other words, great songs play themselves.
Yeah. What motivates you? What motivates you to continue at this high level that you're at?
What motivates me is I want to be able to finally, do it at a level that I can really be thrilled at, because it's pretty hit and miss, and it's been that way for it's been that way for many, many years. So I think that's the thing, is that I want to make that statement that is unquestionable, for me.
Yeah.
For me, really,
Yeah.
because I got enough people saying how great I am. They've been
yeah.
doing that for years.
Yeah.
All the accolades. It's wonderful. It's a great blessing to have that. But if I'm not happy, that's the that's the whole thing. So that's what I kind of want to do. And I'm doing that right now with my own music. I'm getting excited. Just last night I woke my wife up, and she says, "When are you going to come to bed?" It was about 4, something like that, and I got so excited I couldn't stop. I was working on one of my songs. I wasn't playing drums. I'm going to put the drums on later.
Yeah.
But that's what excites me, and makes me want to. I want to play some stuff that everybody, first of all, laughs at, gets a great laugh, and then says how much they enjoy it. That's what I like.
How powerful.
Yeah.
In closing, Jim, we're going to have thousands of future generations and thriving musicians, that are trying to reach their place in the music industry. And as they watch this, in closing, what would you leave with them? What kind of advice would you leave with them for this next generation to understand?
I just think that if you whatever your goals are, if you want to play on records, or if you want to be in a band, a big successful band, or whatever it is you want to do, I think you just have to find out, do I love this thing? Am I in love with this stuff? Or am I thinking, I'm going to give myself 5 years, and if I don't make it, then I'm going to forget it.
Right.
Because, there are people that say that, and it's always been it's always made me feel really uncomfortable when I hear that. Like, I don't know how you live your life on a time schedule where if I haven't made it, see, what does making it mean? What is that?
Yeah.
So I think you have to really understand whether you love this thing or not. If you love music and you love playing, you're just going to do it no matter what.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I would say would be, be ready when the opportunity knocks. And the way you're ready is through having a body of experience. And you get experience from just doing it all the time.
Yeah.
So
that's the bottom line. What's amazing about it is that in my lessons I had with Shelly Manne loved you.
Oh, I loved Shelly. He was like my uncle, man.
Absolutely. Jeff Porcaro loved you. Denny Serafin loves you. These are people that have accomplished at what they've done. And all roads lead back to you, Jim, where they speak of that first. I love Jim. So what you have done, whether you realize it or not, is very powerful. As I travel the globe doing my little vaudeville act of drumming around the world, and I keep on hearing your name come up, and every time it comes up, it has to do with how you reach people and the love that they have. That is really a huge legacy. And that's something which not a lot of people have in any field, nevertheless any art form, and nevertheless in our little drumming world. You did that. That's very, very powerful. On behalf of the sessions, we thank you so much, Jim. You are absolutely first class and one of a kind. I thank you so much.
Thank you, Don. God bless you, brother.
Great, thanks.